I can't believe you're actually going through with this, Olivia said, her voice dripping with disdain as she leaned against my office doorframe. I looked up from my laptop, where I'd been finalizing the business plan I'd spent months perfecting. My sister stood there in her designer suit, every inch of her radiating the confidence that came from never having to fight for anything in her life. Why wouldn't I? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I've been working on this concept for over a year. The market research shows there's a huge demand for sustainable fashion rental services, especially in. Please, she cut me off with a dismissive wave. You really think you can pull this off? You've never even run a business before. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and at 28, I was about to launch my dream company, a revolutionary platform that would transform how people thought about fashion consumption. The idea had come to me during my years working in retail management, watching countless customers struggle with the balance between wanting to stay trendy and being environmentally conscious. My solution was simple but innovative, a subscription-based service that would allow people to rent high-end sustainable fashion pieces, with a portion of the profits going to environmental causes. I'd spent countless nights researching, planning, and building connections with sustainable fashion brands. Every detail had been carefully considered, from the eco-friendly packaging to the blockchain-based tracking system that would ensure transparency in our supply chain. This wasn't just a business idea. It was my passion, my way of making a real difference in an industry desperately needing change. But Olivia had always had a way of making my dreams seem small, insignificant. At 32, she was the successful one in our family, working as a marketing executive at a prestigious firm. She'd always done everything first, better, smoother. And she never let me forget it. I've done my homework, I replied, turning back to my laptop. The business plan is solid, the financial projections are conservative but promising, and I've already got interest from several investors. She walked into my office, picking up one of the sample sustainable fabric swatches from my desk. Oh really? And how much startup capital do you need? $250,000, I said, watching as her perfectly manicured fingers toyed with the fabric. I'm meeting with Mom and Dad this weekend to discuss their investment. That's when I saw it, the flash in her eyes, the slight curl of her lip. I should have recognized it for what it was, the look of a predator spotting prey. Well, good luck with that, she said, dropping the fabric back on my desk. I'm sure it'll be interesting. I didn't think much of her visit at the time. That was my first mistake. The family dinner that weekend started like any other, with Mom fussing over the table settings and Dad talking about his golf game. I'd spent hours preparing my presentation, making sure every detail was perfect. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled out my laptop. Before we start dinner, I began. I wanted to talk to you both about an investment opportunity. But before I could even open my presentation, Olivia cleared her throat. Actually, she said, setting down her wine glass with a deliberate click, I have something I'd like to discuss too. My stomach tightened as she pulled out her own laptop. I've been working on an exciting new venture, she announced, her voice carrying that confident tone she perfected over years of corporate presentations. A revolutionary platform in the sustainable fashion space. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as I watched her pull up a sleek presentation, complete with professional graphics and animations. My presentation suddenly felt amateur in comparison. As she spoke, describing my idea with practiced ease, adding just enough tweaks to make it seem like her own, I felt the blood drain from my face. The market research shows huge potential, she was saying, using the exact phrases I'd shared with her in my office. And with my experience in marketing and business development, we could dominate this space within 2 years. Mom and Dad were enthralled, nodding along as she wove her spell. They'd always been impressed by her corporate success, her polished demeanor. When she finished, Dad was already reaching for his checkbook. This is impressive, Olivia, he said, beaming with pride. Very impressive. How much are you looking for? $500,000, she replied smoothly, to really do it right. Now that's thinking big, Mom added, shooting me a quick glance. Sarah, didn't you want to discuss something too? I sat there, frozen, as the magnitude of what had just happened sank in. My sister hadn't just stolen my idea. She'd taken my dream and sold it as her own, knowing she had the credentials and connections to make it more appealing to our parents. No, I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. It's nothing. Later that night, as I was leaving, Olivia caught up with me in the driveway. "Hey, no hard feelings, right?" she said, her smile sharp in the darkness. "Business is business. And let's be honest, I can execute this so much better than you ever could. Good luck competing, though." Her laugh echoed in my ears as I drove home, tears blurring my vision. But among the hurt and betrayal, something else was crystallizing: determination. If Olivia thought she could just steal my dream and get away with it, she was about to learn a very important lesson. I spent that night going through everything. All my research, my contacts, my plans. Olivia might have taken my basic idea, but she didn't have the depth of knowledge I'd accumulated over the past year. She didn't have the relationships I'd built with sustainable fashion brands, or the understanding of the complex supply chain issues involved. Most importantly, she didn't have my backup plan. You see, while developing my business concept, I discovered something crucial. The sustainable fashion industry had a significant authentication problem. Many brands claiming to be eco-friendly were actually greenwashing their products, using clever marketing to hide unsustainable practices. My original business plan had included a proprietary authentication system that would use blockchain technology to track and verify the sustainability claims of our partner brands. It was complex, technical, and I hadn't shared those details with Olivia during her office visit. She had the shell of my idea, but not its revolutionary core. The next morning, I called Marcus, my best friend from college who now worked in tech development. "Remember that authentication system we discussed?" I asked. "How quickly can we make it operational?" "The prototype's already built," he replied. "We could have a working version in 3 months, maybe less." "Why?" I took a deep breath. "Because we're going to beat my sister at her own game." Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as Olivia threw our parents' money at launching her version of my business. She hired a flashy PR firm, rented expensive office space, and started making grand promises about revolutionizing sustainable fashion. Her company, which she named EcoChick, generated quite a buzz in the local business scene. Meanwhile, I worked quietly but steadily. I sold my car, emptied my savings, and took out a small business loan. It wasn't $500,000, but it was enough to start. Marcus and his team worked around the clock on the authentication system, while I focused on building real relationships with truly sustainable brands who understood the value of what we were creating. I named my company True Thread, simple, honest, and direct. Everything Olivia wasn't. 3 months later, just as EcoChick was preparing for its grand launch, I made my move. I didn't do it with flashy PR or expensive parties. Instead, I published a detailed white paper revealing the extent of greenwashing in the fashion industry, along with our blockchain-based solution for authenticating truly sustainable products. The paper went viral in sustainability circles. Major fashion blogs picked it up, and suddenly True Thread was being hailed as a potential game-changer in sustainable fashion. More importantly, several high-profile sustainable brands reached out, excited about the possibility of proving their eco-friendly credentials. Olivia's launch party was scheduled for the following week. I didn't attend, but I heard all about it from Mom, who called to tell me how impressive everything looked. The offices were beautiful, the champagne was flowing, and Olivia gave a passionate speech about revolutionizing sustainable fashion. What Olivia didn't know was that 3 of her biggest potential brand partners had already signed exclusive agreements with True Thread. They'd been impressed by our authentication system and our genuine commitment to sustainability. More importantly, they'd been concerned about the lack of technical depth in EcoChick's approach. The first cracks in Olivia's facade appeared about 2 months after her launch. Without proper authentication measures, EcoChick had accidentally partnered with several brands that were later exposed for greenwashing. The scandal was minor, but it was enough to make other potential partners nervous. Meanwhile, True Thread was growing steadily. Our authentication system was proving its worth, and our commitment to transparency was attracting both customers and partners. We weren't growing as fast as EcoChick, but we were building something sustainable in every sense of the word. I was in my office late one evening, reviewing partnership agreements, when my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Olivia's been drinking. She's very upset." "What did you do?" I didn't respond. I knew what was coming. The next morning, Olivia showed up at my office. Gone was the designer suit and the perfect makeup. She looked tired, desperate. "We need to talk," she said, her voice lacking its usual confidence. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, the same spot where, months ago, she had dismissed my dreams with a wave of her hand. I'm listening, I said quietly, watching as my sister struggled to find the words that would salvage her failing business. And in that moment, I realized that sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in watching your enemies fall, but in knowing you succeeded despite them. Olivia sat across from me, fidgeting with her watch, a nervous habit I hadn't seen since we were kids. The morning light streaming through my office window highlighted the dark circles under her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands. This wasn't the polished sister who had smugly stolen my dreams. This was someone on the edge of desperation. I need your help, she finally said, the words seeming to physically pain her. Eco Chick is in trouble. I leaned back in my chair, letting the silence stretch between us. Part of me wanted to savor this moment, to let her feel the full weight of her actions. But another part, the part that remembered building sandcastles with her at the beach and sharing secrets under blanket forts, ached at seeing her so broken. What kind of trouble? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She ran a hand through her hair, a gesture so uncharacteristically vulnerable that it caught me off guard. Everything's falling apart, she admitted. The greenwashing scandal was just the beginning. We've lost 3 more brand partnerships this week. Our authentication process is a mess. We can't verify half the claims our partners make about their sustainability practices. And now, she paused, swallowing hard. Now there's a class action lawsuit brewing. Some customers are claiming we misled them about the environmental impact of our products. I felt my stomach tighten. A lawsuit could not only destroy EcoChick, but could damage the entire sustainable fashion movement we were trying to build. This was bigger than just Olivia's failure. It could hurt the very cause I dedicated myself to. What about Mom and Dad's investment? I asked, already dreading the answer. Olivia's eyes welled up. Gone. All of it. $500,000. I've tried everything, Sarah. Hired consultants, brought in experts, but nothing works. We need your authentication system. We need TrueThread's credibility. The irony wasn't lost on me. The sister who had dismissed my capabilities, who had stolen my idea and claimed she could execute it better, was now asking for the very expertise she'd once mocked. And what exactly are you proposing? I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil of emotions inside me. A merger, she said quickly, as if getting the words out faster would make them more palatable. EcoChick and TrueThread. Together we'd have the market presence and the technical backbone. You have the authentication system and the trust of the sustainable brands. We have the marketing reach and the customer base. It makes sense. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. The same view I'd stared at countless nights while building TrueThread from scratch, without family support or connections. Just pure determination and belief in my vision. It makes sense, I repeated softly, turning back to face her. Just like it made sense for you to steal my idea and convince our parents to invest in you instead of me. Just like it made sense to laugh in my face and tell me I couldn't compete. Olivia flinched. I was wrong, she whispered. I was arrogant and cruel, and I was wrong about everything. You've built something amazing here, something real. I just took the surface idea and threw money at it, but you understood the depth of what was needed. You always did. Her admission hung in the air between us, heavy with years of rivalry and resentment. I sat back down, pulling up TrueThread's latest financial reports on my computer. Do you know what these numbers mean, Olivia? I asked, turning the screen toward her. They show that TrueThread is now valued at over $5 million. We're profitable, growing, and most importantly, we're making a real difference in the industry. We've helped expose 3 major greenwashing operations and provided certification for dozens of genuinely sustainable brands. I let that sink in before continuing. And do you know how we got here? By understanding that sustainability isn't just a marketing buzzword. It's a commitment that requires knowledge, transparency, and integrity. Olivia nodded, wiping away a tear. I know that now, but it's not just about the money anymore, Sarah. If EcoChick goes down like this, it could damage consumer trust in sustainable fashion for years. Everything you've worked for, everything you believe in, it could all be tainted by association. She was right, and that was the most frustrating part. The sustainable fashion movement was still fragile, still fighting against decades of fast fashion dominance. A high-profile failure and lawsuit could set us back years. I pulled up another document on my computer, One I'd prepared months ago, almost as if I'd known this day would come. I'm not interested in a merger, I said firmly, watching her face fall. But I am willing to discuss an acquisition. Her head snapped up. An acquisition? TruthThread would absorb EcoCheck's assets and customer base. We'd handle the transition of your existing partnerships to our authentication system. Most importantly, we'd implement proper sustainability verification for all products, which should help mitigate the lawsuit risks. I slid a paper across the desk to her. These are my terms. They're non-negotiable. Olivia picked up the document with trembling hands. As she read, her eyes widened. This would mean. You work for me, I finished. Not as an executive, but as a regular employee in our marketing department. You'd start at entry level and earn any promotions based on merit, not family connections. And you'd have to publicly acknowledge that TruthThread's authentication system was your sister's innovation that you initially borrowed. She stared at the paper for a long moment. And Mom and Dad's investment? I'll ensure they get partial recovery of their investment through shares in TruthThread. Not all of it. They made their choice when they backed you without even hearing my pitch. But enough to show that family still means something to me. Olivia looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw my sister instead of my rival. Why would you do this? After everything I did to you? I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up working on TruthThread, all the obstacles I'd overcome, all the strength I found in myself when everyone else had doubted me. Because success isn't about destroying your competition, I said softly. It's about staying true to your vision and your values, and my vision was always about making the fashion industry more sustainable, more transparent. This acquisition serves that goal. I paused, letting a small smile cross my face. Besides, watching you have to learn things the right way, from the ground up, might be satisfaction enough. A week later, we announced the acquisition. The press praised it as a smart consolidation in the sustainable fashion space, but those who knew the whole story saw it for what it was. A testament to the power of doing things the right way, even when others take shortcuts. Olivia started her new role the following Monday. I watched from my office as she was shown to her small cubicle, accepting the standard employee laptop and orientation packet with a humility I'd never seen in her before. It was strange seeing her without the designer suits and perfect makeup, dressed in business casual like any other employee. That evening, as I was leaving the office, I found a note on my desk written in Olivia's familiar handwriting. I never said it properly before, but I'm sorry. Not just for stealing your idea, but for every time I made you feel less than. You've built something extraordinary here, and I hope one day I can earn the right to be proud to be your sister again. Thank you for giving me a chance to learn from you. Oh. I tucked the note into my desk drawer and headed home, feeling lighter than I had in months. The next morning, I had Marcus start training Olivia on our authentication system. If she was going to work her way up in my company, she was going to learn everything from the ground up, starting with the very thing she should have valued from the beginning. Over the next few months, I watched as Olivia threw herself into learning every aspect of the business. She stayed late, asked questions, and most surprisingly, showed genuine interest in understanding the technical side of our authentication system. The employees who didn't know our history were impressed by her work ethic. Those who did watched with a mix of amusement and respect as she earned her place, one small victory at a time. Mom and Dad took longer to come around. The loss of their investment had strained family relationships, and it took several uncomfortable Sunday dinners before we could all sit at the same table without tension. But gradually, as they saw how TruthThread was growing and how Olivia was changing, things began to heal. 1 year after the acquisition, I called Olivia into my office. She entered with the quiet confidence she developed, so different from her old arrogance. I've been reviewing your performance reports, I said, gesturing for her to sit. Your supervisors speak highly of your work, particularly your recent campaign for our Authentication Awareness Initiative. She nodded, waiting for me to continue. There's a senior marketing position opening up, I said, watching her carefully. You'd be welcome to apply, just like any other employee. A smile spread across her face, not the smug grin of old, but something genuine and warm. Thank you, but I think I'll wait. I'm still learning so much in my current role, and honestly, I want to earn it, really earn it this time. I felt a surge of pride, not just in my company's success, but in watching my sister become someone who finally understood the value of doing things the right way. Well, I said, standing up and gathering my things. In that case, want to grab coffee? I've been working on some new ideas for expanding our authentication system, and I'd love your marketing perspective. As we walked to the coffee shop, discussing business ideas and sharing genuine laughs, I realized that sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about growing beyond what hurt you, and maybe even helping others grow too. TruthThread continued to lead the sustainable fashion revolution, but more importantly, it stood as proof that success built on integrity lasts longer than any shortcut. And every time I saw Olivia working late at her desk, poring over sustainability reports or crafting honest marketing campaigns, I knew that some lessons, though hard learned, were worth every difficult moment along the way.